that man cannot know. The bloom is the last light of the gods.
The sacred bloom traveled, and my dreams traveled with it.
Hey, I'm busy with an indie cartoon pilot of my webcomic Loki IRL, and a strange, colorful Game Boy Advance games video. So, here's a snippet of an interview with the director and writer of Spine of Night, a new rotoscoped anthology film that's a throwback to heavy metal and fire and ice, and co-written by Philip Gelatt, who wrote many of the Love, Death Robot shorts. Spine of Night is available in the links below and wherever DVDs are sold. This is just a clip, so you can watch the full interview in the new podcast channel, formerly gaming channel, links below.
So I also wrote a bunch for season 3, which is coming out sometime this year.
I assume this is the first I've heard of season 3 of Love, Death Robots. So, are you allowed to say that?
I think I'm allowed to say it. Yeah, okay. I'm pretty sure I am.
So yeah, season 3 of Love, Death Robots coming eventually. I don't know when.
Eventually, yeah. So I think sometime this year. So,
yeah. Well, we're pretty early in the year, so okay. But this was a pan-exclusive news break. Correction, they already announced Love, Death Robots season 3 a while back. Anyway, here's a snippet of the interview. But were you ever just discouraged, thinking God, cancel this project? It's too overbearing.
Oh yeah, for sure. When we'd first finished editing the live action reference version of it, I thought, this is going to take, 3.5, 4 years. And Phil thought, maybe 5. Things always take longer than you think. And I remember we put up a teaser trailer saying it was coming out in 2017. Oh. And I remember when I took that trailer down from YouTube, and we weren't even halfway done. And I was like, I have bitten off a whole lot. This is a huge, huge project. And it was... it was tough. It's a long time.
Yeah.
I have this sort of hippy-dippy theory about, and it applies to almost anything that I've made, where I feel like it's almost inevitable that the story of the making of the thing that you're making is reflected in the thing that you're making, right? So in some sense, the story of this film is like an epic. The story of the movie spans centuries. It didn't take us centuries to finish the movie, but at a certain point, I was suddenly like, "Oh, it's happening again!" We're the story of the making of it is similar to the story that we're telling. It's weird when that happens. Yeah.
It's such a long scope of a film, so yeah. But did you work on other things in between this film?
I didn't, personally. This is all I've done.
Oh, man.
So, really, if you count the short films, this is all I've done for 10 years. Phil has done all sorts of cool things.
Yeah, so, we were talking about Love, Death, and Robots before we started recording, which is the show that have written the majority of the episodes for, and, I didn't have that job until year 3 of Spine of Night being in animation production. So it's just a weird it's weird that I suddenly have become an adult animation writer, almost coincidentally. I obviously loved Exordium, and that's why I approached Morgan to make Spine of Night, but I was approached to do Love, Death, and Robots just because I knew Tim, who is the principal creative on that one. He's like, "Oh, you want to come write these adult shorts for me?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." So so I did Love, Death, and Robots, and then I made a live action movie called They Remain, which has William Jackson Harper in it, who's in NBC's The Good Place, and he was in Underground Railroad on Amazon Prime. And then I've been video games. I've been writing video games. I've done all kinds of stuff while poor Morgan has been chained to his desk, suffering for his love of rotoscoping.
Oh, man. Damn, he pulled a Thief in the Cobbler, except he actually finished.
Yeah, right?
If we hadn't been such an independent production, no one would have ever had the patience to let it be completed. I think it was really because of it, the flexibility we had by being such a small team that even made it possible to actually complete it eventually.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, sorry. Where did the funding come from?
and was like, oh, I love this. Like, this is, I love this style of animation. I love this flavor of fantasy that's sort of like low fantasy, psychedelic and violent and just like for lack of a better term, kind of insane. And it felt to me like exactly like what I wanted to do. So I reached out to Morgan, as we've said, and we started working together. And I suspected at the time I was very confident at the time that nobody would finance this movie. I mean, we would have been laughed out of any room that we attempted to get into if we were to say we're going to make, like a hard R violent fantasy film, that done in this old school animation style that nobody really does anymore. And on top of that, it's not based on any famous author's novel series. Like it's not Robert Jordan. It's not George R. R. Martin. It's not Robert E. Howard. It's just its own thing. I mean, nobody would have financed it. So I just thought, let's start. Like, let's write the script. Let's get a warehouse and let's just go and see what happens. I mean, it is a little bit, in my mind, it was like a shortcut to getting it made. But of course, it also took 7 years to finish it. So anyway, so the financing, yeah. So we started basically self-financed. I put the first chunk of money together that got us through the first couple of years, at which point it became clear that we were going to need more money to finish it if we were ever going to get it done, right? So at that point, we had enough animated that we could show to people, like, this is how the movie's going to look. This is how the animation is going to look. These are the backgrounds. Like, this is a pretty, you could see what the finished project was going to look like. And at that point, we sort of went out and approached the bigger name voice talent that we put into the film, and then once we got them signed on, we were able to to get a little bit more money to finish the film. So it was we had 7 years. There were many stages to the financing, basically. Yeah.
Oh, the long version is I had wanted to do film, and in college I'd gone for art. I found that a little classical and not to my taste, so I moved into mass communications, like video editing, and I immediately wanted to do film, but I was already years into my degree, and I was like, well, I'll just finish this up and hopefully be able to turn this into, combine my love of, two-dimensional art and filmmaking. But then that didn't work for a long time, and I mostly worked doing graphic design at a small record label. Anyway, eventually, all of that sort of ended, and I was eager to get back to doing what I'd set out to do in the first place. And animation was the thing I could do in my house that didn't cost anything except time. And so then pretty quickly, I was like, I realized the limitations, sort of puppet style, flash animation, and wanted the flexibility that I'd have with live action. And I grew up totally in love with the Bakshi films and all the rotoscoping of the era. So it seemed like a path to explore. So I did several short films, like refining the process and workflow and trying to get a style that I liked. And the Exordium itself, I'd showed a few. I was living in Philadelphia at the time, and a guy who I was friends with, Josh Jones, made short film, was working on his own short films, and got some of his friends together, and we shot all the live action reference stuff over 2 days. And then I took it back to the house and drew it for just about 10 months straight. And my wife was very patient while I just sat in the corner and drew all day, every day. And then Machinima, if you remember them.
Oh, yeah.
They reached out to me and were putting together...
Good reaction.
Yeah, I mean, that's about fair.
Yeah.
But they reached out and were like, we're putting together an interactive film festival that was going to be in a gallery space in LA, but then also online. And they wanted to take one of my earlier short films to put in there, and I was like, hang on, I'm almost done with this other one. So I stayed up for like almost a week straight, just trying, I'd sleep for 2 or 3 hours and just get right back up to hit their deadline to get Exordium out in time. So eventually I got that to them. It showed at their thing, and someone saw it there and sent it to Phil, and then he reached out to me.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. And nothing bad happened with Machinima after.
Right. I've had back in the day. Because I put the video up on my own YouTube channel. They were constantly sending me copyright strikes against my own thing, and I was like, guys, look, this is I double checked the agreement. You don't own shit. So anyway,
God.
I have jokingly said that Spine of Night is the best thing to come eventually out of Machinima. That may not be true, but it might be, you know?
Possibly. They owned like everything and then they just vanished from existence.
Yeah, what? I mean, this doesn't need to become a tangent about Machinima, but where did they go? Like, they must have just sort of like dissipated into other, like, areas of content creation, quote unquote, to use corporate speak. I really have no idea where they disappeared to.
From what I understand, some other company, some bigger company bought them up, and
okay,
whatever company that was like, hey, all these YouTube videos might get us copyright claimed or something or sued, so let's just delist them all. So now all the videos they had on their channel are just privated.
Keeping it classy. I love it.
Just a lot of lost media now thanks to that. Yeah.